joining me. I know it's right in the middle of the week, not actually middle of the week, towards almost towards the end of the week, and after a hectic day at work, uh, it takes a lot of determination to make it here for this discussion. So very grateful to you for that. We have two, three more of your colleagues, peers who will be joining us. They're on the way, but we thought that let's not wait more and start because it's not fair on all of you who have been already here on time. So before we delve into the topic, which is future proof your enterprise with digital, brought to you by ETCIO in association with AWS and Cognizant. Um, I thought let me just take a minute to set the context, and then of course we will get into the introductions and the discussion. Now, if we, it's a very cliched statement that has been made in the last 2 years, which is that the pace of digital transformation has accelerated many folds, and we have seen years of transformation getting happening in months and in even in some cases weeks. And what we saw was that cloud was actually the foundation or the pivot for this accelerated digital adoption. And while it took a crisis for companies to accelerate their digital transformation journey, what they realized was that those who were already in a in a more advanced phase of the journey were able to fare better as compared to those who were sitting on the fence and still thinking, or rather thinking of their strategy. And that has kind of opened up the eyes. And while we are continuing to see that pace of acceleration continue to grow, uh, a lot of this acceleration is going to be driven, or rather continue to be driven, by cloud. And now we are hearing of companies, rather CIOs, CTOs, and CDOs talking about cloud first. And of course, Gartner has come up with Cloud Smart as well, and we will talk about that also. Now, what happened during this last 1 year when organizations haphazardly might not be the wrong way, but in order to keep the lights on, in order to ensure business continuity, they went in and uh, just bought the technology, or put in the money in cloud or any other technology, uh, without maybe giving it too much of structured thought at that time, because it was more of need to ensure that the lights are on. Not to say that, of course, organizations did strategize, around their adoption as they implemented. What we are seeing is that the next few years, now that the post pandemic stage, we are at that stage where that rapid phase of adoption happened, and it will continue to happen. Now is the time for companies to sit back and really think, where do they see their cloud first strategy going forward? Do they really continue with the way they were investing in cloud in the last 2 years, or do they look at cloud first from a new lens, a completely new lens of efficiency, optimization, maximization? How do they really ensure that their cloud strategy really results in the kind of transformational business impact that they are targeting? And in today's discussion, this is the idea that we want to really hear from you. What is your strategy for this next phase, or rather, it's already here, not next, the phase of cloud first within your organization? How are you planning to leverage cloud going forward? What kind of use cases you are looking at, and the challenges that come with it? So, with that, I would like to take the opportunity to introduce our speakers. But before that, I would like to welcome Sarosh Kumar. Sarosh would like to welcome all of you, and then we will proceed with the session.
Sure. Thank you everyone who are joining us this evening. I think Well, apologies for this delayed start, and this place is. I hope since it was in middle of Gurgaon and Delhi, we thought it will be convenient, but I think it has become more mess joining this place. But sorry for that. We'll take it as a feedback. But really, thank you for joining us this evening, and we welcome you all. Objective was to just keep it very interactive, and we have experts from AWS as well as Cognizant side, so that. So I think objective is to have a very interactive discussion between the experts and you, and I know to have more better understanding in terms of where you are looking at these transformation journeys and how industry trends are moving on. Sharing your views together as per your understanding, as well as our experts sharing their thought process as well. So that's the entire objective of this interactive session. So I think good that we have participation. I think there are a lot of people stuck in traffic, so they'll also join us. But let's start off in the meanwhile and share our thoughts and then see how it progresses. Once again, welcome you all, and please be free in terms of sharing your thoughts and views. Sarosh, I lead the digital and technology business for Cognizant in India. Over around 23 years of experience working with organizations like SAP for almost a decade. Few of you know me very well from those days, anyways. I've spent a few years in Accenture, with TCS, with Wipro, and now with Cognizant. I'm leading the digital and technology business. Thank you all, and really welcome.
Let's now move into the session, which is where the crux lies. And I want to introduce three key speakers before we move on with the discussion. I have with me Sumit Gupta, who is the client relationship manager at AWS. I also have with me Girish Totlur, who is global delivery head for AWS delivery under Cloud Plus in Cognizant. He's focused on enterprise cloud. And I also have with me Krishna Kumar Subramanian, as KK as he likes to be called, Senior Director Consulting with Cognizant. His focus is on data and analytics. So, Sumit, KK and Girish, opening remarks from you before we get into the discussion.
Why am I here speaking about this particular topic is that I lead the consultancy organization with the focus on data and analytics. For data and analytics. And I do a number of this cloud smart engagements, helping our clients move and modernize towards the cloud. So I'm not using the word migrate, because I'm using the word modernize because I'm going to talk more about how we can go through the journey of modernization. And my experience comes from a variety of different domains, starting with retail banking, consumer insurance, healthcare, manufacturing, and so on. So I come with a multitude of all of these domains, which is what I want to convert that into wisdom and have a few of these thoughts shared with you in terms of some of the best practices, which has worked well, and also lessons learned in terms of other implementations with which all of us can be more advice. Yes. That would be the intent and the content of my entire portion of what I'll be covering today. Over to you.
Hey, thank you, KK. Hello, good evening, everyone. Thanks once again for taking your time and joining us today to hear and share your views around digital transformation and how cloud is a top enabler in digital transformation journey. Right? We all know that digital transformation really helps in accelerating business outcomes, identifying new revenue streams, identifying new sources of revenue. And it's a major vector for us when it comes to thinking about growth and scalability in times. Now, when you think about AWS, we have gone out of digital transformation at Amazon 2 decades back, right? And we keep on bringing all those learnings around manufacturing, supply chain, operations, retail to our customers in the enterprise. A lot of solutions what we have to do are built out of what we've been doing at Amazon for the last 2 decades and what we hear from our customers. And we take those customer feedback and keep on innovating at scale. And today, along with Cognizant and my peers, I take this opportunity to share ideas and take away some key learnings to help improve our customer engagement.
Thanks, Sumit.
In Cognizant, I had global delivery for all our customers who are enterprise customers who are moving towards cloud. I manage the delivery globally. In that role, it gives me an opportunity to talk to various CXO organizations across the globe and try to strategize their cloud journey. At the same time, bring best practices, what Cognizant as a team we have by working with many customers. In that perspective, today I'm here primarily for two reasons. One is that we will share what are the challenges or what are our approaches which have worked for our customers and what we have been doing with them and how we can share that with you. Second, I also want to learn from you because you are also in some form or shape in that journey already, right? So what are your challenges and what are your best practices that you have brought in? And see, I want to take away that when we close the session today, that together we have more fruitful conversation, and each other we take something where we go back and implement or take as a best practice. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Girish. Like I said during the introduction, it's time to now pause maybe for organizations. Not a big pause, obviously, because you can't really stop digital transformation. Yes. The pace doesn't allow you to do that. But it's time to look at a more structured approach to your cloud strategy, which enables you to gain competitive advantage, get quick wins with, rather maximize the ROI, accelerate the outcomes, the project outcomes, and identify new use cases that can make a truly transformational impact. So with that in mind, Ajay, I told you I will put you in the spot first. First of all, I would like to understand from you, in your organization, have you started looking at a cloud first approach? Is it right to assume that every organization today is looking at a cloud first approach, and how are you pursuing this cloud led transformation within your organization to really look at business outcomes, maybe some use cases that you would like to share?
Sure, thanks, Megha. If you look at the overall perspective, we have been in the cloud framework or decided to move in the cloud about 3 years back, like before COVID hit it. And that's when we were looking at solutions for telematics to be all the vehicles that are currently fitted with GPS and telematics devices. Okay, they throw a lot of data on a regular basis or continuous streaming basis. So we were looking at the solution and scale up as we grew, because we were starting small and we were likely to grow much larger. And in 3 years, we see a huge amount of growth left. And it was the right time that we moved on to the cloud. So that was a good business case to do it, because volume of data was huge, spread was large, and I don't think that any of the solution which is on-premise could have helped out in that particular site or for that particular use case. So based on that, when we started our approach for other systems, our distributed application system, which basically are accessed across the country or outside India as well. And there we basically looked at in terms of our dealer management systems, for example. These are accessed by dealers across the country, and it makes much more sense for them to connect from anywhere and be able to do business from anywhere. And if our systems are there in the cloud, then they are easily accessible, they are easily workable. This was kind of distributed application, and I know a huge chunk of our on-premise, so we migrated or we modernized this entire thing in our cloud, and that's the second step. And third step, next step, our approach is to take a huge chunk of our on-premise systems onto the cloud, and by that we are talking about ERP systems to be taken onto the cloud, satellite application systems to be taken onto the cloud. From an accessibility perspective, yes, it will be much more accessible, because from anywhere you can access it. Accessibility as such was not a challenge anywhere, because we were all structured in terms of accessing systems from anywhere earlier. But here, from a scalability perspective, as we look at new age systems, demand of resources is much higher as compared to what was earlier. So this gives us a flexibility in terms of expanding on that. However, having said that, when you said we need to look at a complete holistical process in terms of what are the impacts of it, we probably would not have done this kind of an exercise earlier in the day. And this calls for complete review of your entire architecture, your entire access mechanism, your entire cost structures as well. Because somewhere or the other, while you will gain on somewhere, you will be hit on the other side. Along with the security, which probably is much more required in current kind of framework, the current kind of world which you're working in. So that's something which we need to relook at. And there were things which we thought these were taken for granted when it was on-premise. We did not have those challenges in terms of network bandwidth or communication between two different systems.
Yeah.
Okay, here we are stuck with, okay, you have this capacity. If you want to go beyond the capacity, you have to go. You have to shell out another fortune for that. So that's something which we probably need to do a rethink about that. The one good thing about this is, yes, from an availability perspective, your disaster recovery is something which is much more cleaner and much more leaner than what it was having a lot of on-premise. So you gain on that. On that. So from an organization's perspective, I see most organizations will definitely tend to move to the cloud. For smaller organizations, it makes much more sense because for them, it is cost-effective budget. They don't have to see that kind of investment. Secondly, also what I see is for organizations, if they're talking about an entire framework to be moved onto the cloud, that would be need to be given a cost. Because here also we're talking about 80% moving and 20% still retaining on-premise because of certain complexities or certain requirements which the cloud cannot meet anyways. So that's the area where we are still going to be on-premise for the next couple of years till the bandwidth in the country changed.
So if I may ask you, what are very quickly 2 or 3 use cases that you're really betting on, or you see a lot of transformational impact coming from cloud adoption over the next 2 to 3 years? Are there any 2-3 use cases that you've identified for your organization?
See, from a use case perspective, what we see from cost perspective cost will be almost similar to what was on-premise. From a usage perspective, from an application usage perspective, there are several new applications which are coming, which will require a quick spin up. Okay, that's something which probably will not be on-premise, and that is going to speed up the entire transformation space or digital engine. We are already digitalized, but then that's a thing which is going to be a continuous improvement, and that's going to be really helpful for us.
Thank you so much. Rajesh, what about your organization? How do you look at your cloud first journey? Are you strategizing it in a different way as opposed to the last 2 years? Going forward, what are going to be the key tenets of your cloud first strategy, and what challenges do you see in that?
It's about that companies are moving and thinking cloud first strategy. So there are 2 classifications which is clearly available. That the new business, when we are talking about like Ola, Uber, Zomato, OYO. In these all new, you can say new businesses, everyone is heavily dependent and using on cloud. There is no other choices there. There is no other options are there because they want to move faster. They want to move in a quicker. Which is not possible in a on-premise model. So that's why the first choice or only one choice is their cloud. The second category where traditional businesses are there. Either these traditional businesses of 100 crore or 1 lakh crore. For them, even though some bit and pieces, some voices are there that cloud, they're thinking cloud, they're migrating cloud, but they're heavily inside.
Heavily?
heavily reserved to move on cloud.
Yeah.
Example could be a 50 crore company, or example could be a Samsung. Even if you talk about Samsung, everything is on premise. Even they have their own backend. So they're not even actually relying on another company who can bring a better firewall than Samsung itself. So that's the challenge is there. The traditional businesses, they are not so heavily looking towards and feeling too much value in cloud in comparison to the new businesses. Now let's talk about why it's distinguished here. If we talk about this distinguished, so again, this in traditional business, two classifications are there. One, banking, insurance, etc. Where what has happened, their core business has been digitized now. And they cannot survive without that. Those traditional business has moved on cloud. But the rest of company where their core businesses is not heavily dependent on digitizations, they are still reserved, they are still working on different kinds of model, on-premise heavily, having that. So what's stopping to them? Not to think on cloud, not to move faster as rest of business are moving, because their data, their mode of operations, we call it as OT, operations technology. This is actually with them on. It's getting generated there on. And as you said, the movement of that huge data on the cloud itself is a challenge. So since their data is with them, movement on cloud is a big challenge. Somehow value addition, they are not looking value into that. That if my operations data somehow I can move and somehow I can utilize it, then probably they will start thinking more towards that. So the value which is not coming from their core operation. I'm talking about the core operations of I'm saying hotel industry.
Yeah.
You find many hotel industry do not give data. One secrecy matter is there, but many operations handle from on-premise model itself. Because the core operations, they do not feel I can take on cloud, generate some value and can do that. So this whole segment, the second line of business where this traditional business are there, they are not thinking so seriously on cloud, whereas other one is having only one option, go on the cloud. When we try to classify again the second business where we saying traditional businesses are there, those who are thinking to move on cloud. Now let's talk about the dilemma, which we are looking at what is the dilemma in our mind to move on the cloud and what is the challenge is there.
So are you in the category of the dilemma right now, or just asking?
So
I mean, in terms of where your company has decided to.
So about the dilemma, when these companies try to move, those who feel that actually there is a sense is they're moving on cloud, and tomorrow is about cloud, and cloud may be not for the cost. So many other things are coming. Now dilemma is the picture two. One, that public cloud and private cloud. So suppose as a company, I am taking a decision, okay, I will move on cloud. So what is the matter of moving cloud? That I am taking compute power from a cloud provider, with security models that I have taken it, and I am into business of development of my own apps. And then hosting it. So a development team is there who is developing this, then I am taking compute power, I am taking security framework from the cloud provider and making it. We're calling it as a private cloud because everything we are managing. And then there is a dilemma that okay, that's one model which the company trying to move. The second model that they can choose the public cloud. For example, a sales operation. So sales operation, whether I should invest in taking time and energy to take compute power, develop the app, develop the security framework and do that. And second, okay, can I go the public cloud itself? For example, SFDC platform, where I need not to bother about anything. Whether it's a cloud, whether it's a what is the compute power is required, how much security I need to build across, how much investment I need to carry out. So when this second company I'm talking about, they are trying to move in the cloud, they are into the dilemma that what is their right method of moving ahead. Is that moving ahead is we can choose the private cloud method or wherever we can do the cloud. So generally we are opting tentatively wherever we are feeling that public cloud is available. Probably we are feeling safer. Because it's quite easier to move because then there is real cloud model. I am not bothering about what is the compute power, is that I need to optimize my resources or work on the security piece or need to develop piece. I am purely focused on the business part. So that dilemma is there. So tentatively we are saying where available, go on the public cloud. Where it's not available, go on the private cloud. So this is what sometimes
So this is a strategy that your organization has.
Some people,
yeah.
see that, but I'm not sure that what rest of people having mixed some dilemma. That's coming to our mind. That what is way to go on the cloud.
So how much, to what extent have you already moved to the cloud?
So, for example, we have moved our sales operation and logistic operation on public cloud.
Okay.
already.
Okay.
So,
So what you're looking at now is that what are those areas or what are those functions that can really give you maximum ROI by moving to public cloud and give you that impact, and where you can move to the private cloud. That decision making is where you are at the moment.
correct. So, for example, these two are easier to take call, and then we move on the public cloud because standard solutions are available, and we moved it across. But wherever these standard solutions are not there, and where I need to manage my compute power, my security, and then development piece, and rest of all things, then this is what it's holding us back. That how to manage, how to see that okay, value propositions are coming, and what is tomorrow, not sure. So it's not only cloud, but the rest of things are also pegging down. So easier answer is there in the first case. Okay, public cloud is there. Instead of with all responsibility, let's focus on the processes or operation itself. But the second, what I meant to say, even moving the cloud, it's not actually setting up the response. Lots of coming to the part, and then we are tentative to what to do out there.
There's a lot of factors that need to be taken into consideration before taking the decision of whether to move into public or private cloud. Thank you so much, Rajesh. I hope you will find answer to some of the dilemmas here today. So Manoj, I want to bring you into the conversation and understand how you are pursuing cloud-led transformation within your organization. Are there specific use cases that you have identified to maximize business impact and really because when it comes to the cloud footprint of any organization, while that is increasing, organizations may not always, feel that they are getting the return on what they're investing in. So how are you strategizing your cloud first approach and leading the transformation using cloud?
See, I come from an oil and gas company, and as a company, we have a lot of, let's say, enterprise application as well as manufacturing application or OT application. So it's a different contextualization. So you straightway can't have one strategy in place that okay, cloud first or cloud second. It needs to be very, very contextualized in your own environment.
Absolutely.
So whether cloud is good, bad, I don't know. I don't think that's a discussion. That's a way forward. So as a company, what we are doing first is in terms of the new solutions, what we are getting introduced. So we see whether it is available as a SaaS. If it is available, that's a no-brainer. We push ourselves to go for that solution because it's a new baby in the market, and let's go for the cloud rather than building your own infrastructure, security, development, etc., etc. And importantly, what happens with that? Your development efforts, because in the SaaS you don't have much of the choices of customization. Okay, so then you push your business in that umbrella that it's a SaaS. The customization is not possible or minimum possible. So they also tend to adopt those practices where when the choice is available to them. In my experience, I don't know how many of us are using those standard applications. We have made the customization in our own application, whether it is enterprise application or any local, application. So that's another advantage, what we get as a, SaaS. So in our case, whenever new application is coming, we try to go on SaaS and pushing our business also to run on those, the SaaS. The second is, as a company now we have taken, let's say, this entire the Microsoft O365 piece. I think that's the first journey on the cloud where everybody tried to see the advantage of the various collaboration. You don't need to worry your Exchange system is working or not, because we all talk about the transformation using this digital technology, but I think many CIOs would agree that keeping light on itself is a big task even today. let's say we were seeing here, the mics are working, not working, the cameras are working, not working. We could afford here, but I think when we go to our respective organization, if some board meeting is happening or important meeting is happening, forget about the transformation. People are worried, the video conferencing is working or not. Even it's a small subject, but it is a very, very important subject. So, there I think, the Microsoft, this Exchange or Office O365, I think there's a first step organizations are doing. Then it comes to lift and shift, applications where in terms of ROI, I come from a finance background, I'm not a technology guy, okay. At least I don't see, the cost advantage with best of my ability on-prem versus cloud. And why the cost advantage would be, if somebody is taking your headache or somebody is, managing on your behalf, in my opinion, they will charge premium. Because ultimately by moving your infrastructure or your data center or DR center to the cloud, you are optimizing your day-to-day operations. You are transferring your tensions to somebody else. And in my opinion, that when you transfer someone, they will charge a premium. So at least from the ROI per se or from the cost per se, that's not the use case. The use case is from the flexibility, scalability. I think those are the, security again, in my opinion, it's a debatable subject whether when you move to the cloud, everything is secured. I think that also may be a myth or maybe it needs a debate. So cost and security is a myth, but the scalability and the flexibility, I think that's the bigger reason to move to the cloud. And importantly, let's say during this pandemic time of 2 years, since February 2020 and recently, I think most of us were worried about failure of hardware in our data center.
Yeah.
I think that was the biggest worry for most of us, that if something goes wrong,
What if?
so how we will be, despite the redundancies available and all, how the supply chain will work, because it was complete shutdown.
Yeah.
And there is a shortage of the parts were not getting supplied, it was not getting manufactured, etc. I think those were the biggest worry for most of us. So I think the lift and shift of the application, that's another use case, not from the cost per se, from the scalability per se. So that's one thing. And the modernize of application, I think in the cloud, it is a journey, where, let's say, IT vendors or the enterprise application, they are well prepared to move to the cloud, but OT or manufacturing application partners, I don't think, they are still ready to have adoption in the cloud. They started, but in my opinion, they are the laggards and they are following the enterprise. So that's how we are, structuring our cloud journey. Whether it is first, second, third, I don't know. It's a journey over a period of time based on the contextualization. That's what we are doing.
So especially on the RO, I think you truly spoke like a finance guy there. Before I move to the other panelists, Girish, you heard three of them talk about. So Manoj feels that ROI, or rather, the cost is not the is not the use case, and of course the dilemma of how do you choose between private and public? Where do you go private? Where do you go public? Overall, so besides this, overall, how do you see organizations, or how do you organizations should lead or navigate their journey towards the cloud first operations? First of all, should they look at cloud first operations? And if so, how should they navigate this journey, and what is Cognizant's approach on that?
I think quite interesting facts. I think this is what we hear when we talk to customers also, right? So one side, when we say cloud first, we also all know that probably we should look at it in the context of cloud smart also. Because there is one, we have a pressure, as you said, maybe in pandemic it was more, we move more and more, make it work, because that was necessity, right? But while we rush to move to cloud, I think we should look at holistic approach. That's why I say cloud smart as well.
So in cloud first, probably what we do is there are drivers, right? There are some drivers we need to look at it, like Manoj said, or like Sir told about it, right? Ajay Sir told about it. See, what is that the driver that we want to do it? Why we are adopting the cloud? So some you said that the traditional systems have a challenge. Where any new development, cloud native applications, good to move, easy to move. But at the same time, Rajesh was talking, right? See, there is a holistic approach for traditional systems also we need to look at it. At some point in time, those also have to have a path towards digitization. It could be like we have seen legacy systems which are being renewed every now and then. So there has to be a path. It's question of when and how. So what we do is that one, we look at drivers. The drivers could be, some of you might have a strategy to exit a data center, or some of you might want to go to the new market. You want to launch new services or new products. You want to release ahead of time, or you want to be the leading people in your industry to launch their services, or any of those drivers. Each of the drivers have a different solution. But everything has to be looked not just will it solve by moving a cloud, but like a finance or any of the systems you were also mentioning, does it make sense end to end? Who are realizing the value? As an organization, is your IT organization, because we all have budgets, right? Are we realizing the value from an economics perspective? When we take these solutions to the customers, our own customers, are they seeing the modernization in the way they interact with us, right? And as an organization, as a company, are we seeing the return on investment which we thought when we started the cloud journey? So what we in Cognizant take an approach, we call something called migration accelerated approach. We work, it's our flagship program. We work with AWS very closely on that. It's a funded program partially by AWS also. Why we do that? In that, there are three approaches we take. One, as thoughts are coming, right? Traditional SaaS solution or newer applications, whatever the existing infrastructure, legacy, technical debt, whatever it could be, right? So we look at your system as a first part as assessment. We look and assess. In assess, we take many of these criteria. One of them also is fit for purpose, as you said, right? Does it really make sense for this particular application to move to the cloud? At the same time, what it takes for me as an organization to maintain it on-prem also. That's how we have to look at both the business cases. How long I will continue to maintain, will I have capability to maintain, right? So assessment is that part where you look at your entire infrastructure, you look at your application portfolio, try to see, and then come back with a business case, which is going to give you a return on investment and based on all the applications that you are looking at. But that doesn't stop there. When we give a business case, you still want to see how do you do it. Can I really see it in action? Right? That's why the part of the MAP program is mobilize. Once we look at the assessment, then we do a mobilization where we create a landing zone for you, where we give an infrastructure for you on AWS, and we say that, okay, you choose some applications, which can be pilot applications. We do a pilot migration for them to cloud, and you see, and you run it, and you see that, okay, does it make sense? What was the infrastructure cost? What is the application running cost? Then, once we do that, then we migrate. I completely agree that migration is not always lift and shift, is not always lock, stock, barrel, because that doesn't make sense. We need to be realistic because the way our systems have grown, some are heterogeneous, some are monolith, some are acquired from company to company. So you have a federated systems which you cannot have one solution. But at the same time, is it not possible for them to be moved? Of course it is possible. Only thing what we have to do is the migration or our journey, we need to divide into a couple of phases. One, which is easy to move. There are solutions which can move and migrate. You have some, of course, you have some workloads. But some workloads which we traditionally believe that, you are talking about very old legacy traditional applications. Dealer system I could move it, but some of the local application, local data, some applications which are locally developed may not be able to move. I think at some point in time, we can look at, is there an industrial solution already available in that specific, you said that, right? There are some industry solutions which can go directly, you can move there, right? So you can look at industry solutions and try to see if you can move, and you have a plan of retirement of those applications. It's not that I can switch off today, because entire my business runs on it, as you said, lights on. We still have to have a kind of win-win situation where I do what can move as a lift and shift, and what cannot move as a lift and shift, I have a roadmap for that. But it doesn't end there, because when we prepare business case, we do a fit for purpose analysis. Okay, you might have analytics workload, you might have extensive data workload, or you have a low latency tolerance workload. You would have done infrastructure design for it. It requires for us to see that right sizing is done. So when I say smart, it is basically not just moving to cloud, but there has to be governance in operations. Because we have seen, many of you also agree that you would have provisioned the budget for a set of cloud applications, but at some point in time, some of them gone very high, and you suddenly feel that it's not a business case. But if you look at ineffectively, there are levers which economics can be brought into. So cloud economics is a part of the operations, is what is necessary. So these three things what we look at. And finally, I would like to say that when we complete the migration or journey at one phase to customers, we ensure as part of this MAP program, we also ensure that we create a center of excellence within the organization. We leave that tribal knowledge what we have built in, so that your teams can come, they can get trained, they can continue to do this migration acceleration at your pace. You don't have to come to us all the time. So that center of excellence which remains, which has all the knowledge and artifacts and capability in-house in your organization. So I think it has to be a holistic view. There is no one set of solution. But if you ask me, we have customers still working on Linux version 4. We have customers still working on very, very old database technologies. They have a technical debt. They have a data center exit for whatever reason they have to go with. But there are solutions. For example, VMware on AWS. I'll come to the details later. I just wanted to throw that takes you, VMC on AWS takes your existing infrastructure as is, and you move there and maintain it there. And then you have a plan of when to sunset and what to sunset. So those options are available. That's what I feel. It has to be both economics as well as a strategy which has a holistic view.
We are expecting. See, there is no doubt in our mind, like what is in time. So, ready application is the move at right. There is no choice. What we are actually looking at here, that moving a application from on-premise to cloud in a private cloud model is also it's adding too much advantage, because still the responsibility of managing security piece, biggest part, because the kind of cyber threats are there. So is that still that's making sense, or I maybe already inside data center, simply I'm moving it, private 4 and then I'm taking it there. Is it because people are saying that being on public cloud is equivalent to being on premise?
Okay.
This is what statement I'm getting out.
Yeah, I will give a short answer.
Yeah, because we,
But
yeah.
the short answer is that it looks at our perspective, I would say. When I say value, what is that value I'm looking at is a perspective. Am I looking at economics, as somebody said, that it is the modernization journey, I need to somewhere have to adopt? That's one. Having spent some 20 odd years on on-prem infrastructure management, my experience is that if you look for a fit for a purpose, of course, there is an advantage in moving to cloud in very simple ways because of economy of scale. That what somebody was telling, you said, sir, right? I pass on my burden to them. Are they making sense? But they work on economy of scale. To manage 2 Linux instances, I still need a Linux admin. But to manage 200, I still don't need when I move to AWS, because the basic. And second, from a security perspective, there is shared responsibility. All my infrastructure security is taken care by AWS. So that part is taken off. Of course, there is an application security which is with us. Yes, to that level,
we have to have people and expertise in that level. But yeah, again, it all depends on how big that application, how much value I generate out of it.
I think the nuances are different
Yes.
on cloud as compared to
All
certain things that you don't even imagine are shockers. People might actually well into it.
Yes.
Okay, so it's learning which is going to be there.
Yes.
If you've taken an approach for cloud movement, then you have to live with it. Okay, if you've taken an approach to be on-premise, you have to live with it. It'll also have nuances
Yes.
in terms of skill set capabilities, availability also will become a challenge
True.
going forward, and that's being seen now. You are not seeing any resources available to work on premise.
Yes.
Okay, the new next generation kids are born in the cloud. They will be working in the cloud.
Like
I like
Ajay
that.
said, you whatever you choose, you have to live with it. But how to best live with it? I think that is very what can be looked at.
Yes.
So
Shipra,
yeah.
I just want to add a data and analytics story to all of these points. So, sirs, fantastic points, all practical points.
I was
that you
just
had
thinking
actually
maybe
brought
we
it up.
can quickly cover 2-3 more because we will get
Sure, go
delayed.
ahead then.
Just get their perspective and then we'll come to you. So Varun, one is that of course we spoke about a structured approach. He spoke about the cloud economics having a structured approach as you lead in the cloud first era, but it's important for businesses to have some quick wins. So from a core business perspective, where have you seen the maximum impact of cloud in your enterprise to reimagining how things are done? What are some of those 2-3 quick wins?
So I will share. Basically, I joined my current company, Struts, which is the helmet manufacturer, year back. So when I joined, initially I reported to the MD. So he told me these are some infra problems which have been troubling me. Please try to sort them out. I spent 2-3 months on that. After that, he said, "Okay, now I don't want to spend more than 5% of your time on infra." So he started explaining me various different processes. So now I think I understand bit of how the production happens, bit of how the logistics happen. And he told me that these are the business outcomes I need. And actually, I realized one thing. When he gives what he needs as a business outcome, actually how it traverses, it goes through layers. First, he will call maybe the manufacturing head. Then manufacturing head will pass on, let's say, to the plant head, to the assembly line, and maybe to the last level, who is the worker, who is not a skilled person. So there I realized actually, so basically I have to bridge this gap. To bridge this gap, either I spend my time in thinking that what infra, what tech stack and all, I actually focus on what he needs. Because outcomes are required very fast. And actually, so that is where we actually have a cloud-only approach. So we, I would say, I think there are maybe 5% or maybe 2% servers, which are actually a little bit, I would say, a pain for us. How to get rid of them. But otherwise, I think what we realized is that, I'll take again, sorry, a small use case. I think most of our manufacturing companies have a big problem, inventory. Where do we stand on the inventory? So, if today also somebody asks, what is the real inventory? While we may have the best of ERP systems and all, again, I think we will be like stuck. We don't know what is the actual inventory. So, I think with the cloud, at least when I'm thinking of a solution, or when I'm visualizing a solution, last thing I need to worry about is the infrastructure. If I want to try something, I know I will get that infrastructure so easily. Initially, if I don't try to keep it for long, I may pay a little higher cost, which is fine. But at least I can show that outcome. So for this inventory also, like we implemented a warehouse management. It's a mix of cloud, IoT and all. Where on my the warehouse where the finished goods are stored, we keep on getting live inventories. We have sensors, we have PDS and all. But I think all this is possible through cloud only. I think other thing that actually we realized in on-premise, I think the cost is still there, but it's very difficult to measure. For example, electricity is there. Then there's a electrician, there's a server engineer. There are a lot of other hidden costs which doesn't come out. When you are on a cloud, everything is transparent because you get a bill for that. So obviously, so it's very transparent. So that is where
Sir, I'm loving it.
No, he's not got that shock yet. He's not got that shock yet. So I hope he never gets that shock.
Yeah, hopefully.
It's like a vending machine, you put on electricity and it just jumps.
I think post this discussion, we'll have to discuss with him what shocks he's referring
He
to.
knows.
Back to the shop back every day.
So basically, but with that transparency that is coming, so I think maybe in the last 6 months, we have shut down some servers. Maybe we have reduced the resources of some of the servers, and we have invested in the servers. Let's say the SAP. SAP is the key. So we are investing more onto the resources of that. So I think that visibility that we are getting, it's amazing.
Yeah.
So now we know like where to invest. And other thing is that I think other challenges like when we do ERP and all. So companies celebrating their cake cutting, go live, all those things and all. But then when the business comes and say, now, can I today see my live profitability? No, it's very difficult. Don't have this system, that system and all. So we have various different systems. We have to connect them. So with clouds like AWS, Azure and all, we are getting a lot of good layers or a lot of service with which it is easier to connect the heterogeneous environment. Which if I have to again go back to on-premise, building the stack and everything is really difficult. So I think that is also pretty good that. On the cost part, actually we are now recently planning a DR. So I thought maybe we have data center on the cloud. Let's take it on-premise. So did that study. But somebody from AWS, I was just telling, called us. And actually the cost, the monthly cost, even if we take it to 3 or 4 years, actually was much lesser. I think it is also because they are coming with very innovative models. Like I don't know the technical name, but something like a computer hibernate. They have a hibernate option. You keep your DR on a hibernate. It's a minimal cost you are paying. When you make it live, you pay. You pay per hour. But I think what I feel is it's very important to understand also what these cloud providers are now offering because there's a lot of innovation happening. So
It's very interesting to see how very two distinct things. Great, thank you so much, Varun. So, what have been your quick wins? Where have you seen the maximum impact with cloud as far as your business operations, core business operations are concerned?
First of all, sorry, I joined very late. I
No
don't
problem.
know what time you started. Yeah, so I'll just tell you, 6 years story. I joined Daikin 6 years back. Before that, I was in BMW India. Totally different environment. Centralized control here, local control, right? So when I joined, I found it, there's a local data center, and Lotus CC Mail was used there. I was surprised. Immediately, I decided to go with Office 365. That's the one step I had taken on the cloud. So right now, I'm having the hybrid kind of model, and then SAP, the major application on SAP on ECC on-prem solution. That again decided in fact 3 years back, we went live successful on S4HANA. That time I taken very good decision on that. I was looking for the cloud HEC. It was very expensive solution. Then I decided because I was using Power 9 server, Power 8 server, I decided to go with IBM server only. And that time decided that co-located over data center with IBM.
Okay.
Because my DR was with IBM only. So that's another journey we have taken. And 2016, another initiative was taken on the CRM solution. That is again on private cloud, SAP C4C. So, it's a kind of a mix-up of many solutions. But now I'm facing some issue. Like after 3 years, on 19th August, I completed 3 years of migration of SAP S4HANA. Now, because of service sizing, I purchased another service. More investment is coming up. Power 9. And now the problem is I wanted to make a future roadmap. How can I convert into the cloud? The problem is I wanted to go with Power server, but on clouds very rare. I don't know if it is having or not. Google. Maximum, Google or Intel is available. So that's a major challenge. That I'm making some strategy. What should I do with that? Because every time I have to invest after 3 years. More application we are going to introduce, and the ERPs required more bandwidth and need to have every time upgradation. That's a major challenge. So that's I think if we can get some kind of solution that looking for that, that's a challenge. I would say.
Great, thank you
Otherwise,
so much.
I think it's better to go with cloud. not possible to retain people.
Umesh, I can give you power line next year if you want it.
Assuming that IBM will do Power 10.
No. I got a condition of power 10.
Yogesh, what have been what are the areas where you've seen maximum impact of cloud within your organization?
So we are into aerospace and defense.
So totally.
Altogether different story. So for us, it always becomes subjective when it comes to.
So what is the cloud strategy in that case? I mean, how are you really looking at leveraging it in a way?
So actually, we have to look at the business. For anybody to move to the cloud, business first. We cannot ignore the business strategy and impose our IT strategy onto that one. So when business says, so business is depending on the governance and compliances. For us, lot of governance compliances are there. So wherever we see that those compliances are giving us a route to move to the cloud, we are moving to the cloud. Wherever the governance, these compliances say that we cannot move, we are not moving there. Again, we have to decide. Everything in the organization doesn't seem to be very sensitive or this thing. So when we say defense, also defense under the defense, so there are a lot of segmentation that we can do. So we had classified. So after classification, we come to know that this part of the world we can move, this part of the world we can still retain on the premise, because there are a lot of complexities.
Right.
So in fact, I have discussed in length with Microsoft and AWS as well regarding security aspects, but there are no firm answers to it. So again, that you said that security is always a shared responsibility.
Yeah.
So management doesn't want that.
Yeah.
So shared responsibility means who?
Yeah.
Whose neck to chop?
Yeah.
So CISO is going to the first, right? And when CISO comes into the picture, at least he knows that we are on to premise, and we know that this is the data within our this thing. We have Almira where we have locked everything, right? Even if somebody comes, thief it, it's a different altogether. But if we say that it's kept already onto the cloud, then whom to blame it? They will say that you have not met the compliances from their side, right? Because everywhere you will see that nobody can take 100% responsibility. It will always, whether it is on premise or on cloud, 99.99%, right? So 0.01% is taking the jobs of others, right? And as you said, rightly said that keeps the lights on. Still, वो बंदोबस्त के लिए बाहर एक आदमी खड़ा होता है when there is a video conference. So we have to remove that one. So a lot of automation is going on into the industry, and cloud is anyhow inevitable for anybody, whether it's a defense, non-defense. But what to move, what not to move, that call we have to take, and under the circumstances. So we cannot put the company or business onto the stake and move everything into the cloud, right? So from that strategy, so we have taken up steps and trying to classify which is better to have on-premise and better onto the cloud. Then DRDC also we can think of. So DR strategy is there. So as he said that it is transparent into the cloud that electricity bills are there, but he laughed because I know he has not actually seen the underlying story. Anyway, that's a different thing. So during the last 3-4 years, we have seen a lot of attrition. So some organizations move to the cloud because of some constraints, right? Because of the industry issues and the skill sets also. So as the skill sets were very difficult to retain, and shared responsibility with the skill sets was a economy of the scales for us. So the moving to the cloud, at least we are able to see that I don't want to have a resource on premise to handle Linux or some other platform. When it comes to Linux, again there are different flavors, right? So I cannot have persons trained on Red Hat and SUSE Linux and other Linux, right? So that becomes challenge. So we have to actually identify the power of cloud versus the power of on-premise infrastructure. So if that is done properly, then anybody can move to the cloud, and
So-
definitely have to move to the cloud.
So I think one big difference that we have seen in the last few years was that earlier when it came to regulated industries, especially BFSI, defense, where cloud was a clear no, to now where they know that it's inevitable, but what to move and what not to move, that is where it is not about if whether to do it or not, but what to
And when.
move. Yeah,
It's always subjective actually. We have to see this.
right.
And AI/ML technologies are not available on premises
Exactly.
because big computing is required.
So in fact, I will
We are
bring
also facing that.
I will actually bring KK in to talk more about that. But before that,
Yeah, I think-
Basant sir, what are your quick wins on cloud? Are you really, do you see yourself moving to a cloud first kind of approach?
So I recall my journey on cloud, 2011. The cloud was introduced and we were delivering private cloud at that point of time. It was very early. That was used to deliver services to those countries where we could not set up the infrastructure. And then the second thing was to look at what was business needing. So there was a business demand. There were certain priorities which we have to set up, and the only solution we were having to put it on public cloud. So 2015 we started our public cloud journey. So at that time there was many partners were emerging, and we decided one partner basis on the commercial viability and all. At that time we were not looking at many factors. Today we see not many checklists, before we decide who's the partner we can engage with. Things which we consider, as I indicated, the business demand, the priority, the timeline to fulfill the demand. Then, what are the scope we are considering for the project? What are the kind of expenses we are expecting to happen? The agility required, the responsiveness of the partners, because who has to support us. The scalability piece, because the scalability is very important area when you are moving to a cloud platform. Considering the fact that the volatile demand of the market, the market is also changing a lot. Then it is already touched upon specifically the optimization and sizing possibility. Earlier it was not that flexible. Today it is much flexible. It was very rigid. The resource and skill. This is very important. Even today also we see some challenges, and I know many cloud companies are doing their best to see that there are skills available, and you already talked about that. There are some initiatives have been taken to create center of excellence within the organization, which is a very nice initiative, and I'm trying to make use of that. One of the things which we have seen is year on year the cost is increasing. And so the business demand is up. It is not like the cost is only increasing for the setup, but it is actually the business demand is also increasing. So that is happening. Portability still remains a challenge, because you are creating huge database, and how you want to port it to another platform. The time required to port and the kind of assessment you have to do, it takes good amount of time. Then security. Again, it's the same thing I was discussing a few days back, and I was told that it is a joint responsibility. And I'm scared, because this is going to cost my setup. I don't know how jointly we are going to work on it. Who can tell me that I am doing my bit 100%, and who can tell me you are doing your bit 100%? So that is another thing. Then availability and business continuity piece. Again, it attracts a lot of cost.
But at the same time, we can't sustain without that. So we have to ensure that there is a business continuity in place. Then, being in ISO 27001, it's our responsibility to see that the security posture is reviewed periodically. Who is going to help us on that? Am I getting timely response from the partner? And at times we need to even audit the premises. When I was discussing with the partner, they were telling me that they have facility in western part of the country, eastern part of the country, coming in the northern part of the country, and then at some places the resources are limited. So you may have to even look at half of the things are there and half of the things are there. How this is going to work? So that's another thing. Data life cycle. We have to manage it. And we have to ensure that data is completely removed when the life cycle is over. Who is going to guarantee that this is done? And this is also another compliance requirement for us. Then, I talked about scalability piece, considering the different geographies involved, and then Mumbai flood thing. You remember that, and recently also it happened, which has impacted some of the cloud partners. I'm not talking about everyone, but some of the cloud partners. So that has impacted many organizations, business, including banks. So how do we know that we are not going to get impacted? When you are coming and talking to us, we are saying that please do not worry, we are guaranteeing this. And actually, even after signing the SLAs, the issues are coming. And at that time, the only focus is to see how you come back to operation, rather than looking at or pointing out to the cloud partner that you promise something and then this is happening. So these are a couple of thoughts. Although we are on cloud first, strategy, and we are looking possibly at what all we can put on cloud. Today, 80% is on cloud.
So very interesting. I think a lot of questions that you listed out, I'm sure it will be on the mind of a lot of other panelists also, and for something for Girish, Sumit and KK to ponder over. I don't know if you'll be able to respond to all of them here, but maybe over cocktails and dinner later on, you would like to address some of those. I think shared responsibility is again a big contention point. So KK, sorry, I interrupted you at that time. So you wanted to talk about some of the AI ML use cases, and also from a domain and technology perspective, what would you suggest the CIOs, the CTOs to prioritize in their cloud journey?
Okay. First of all, fantastic points. All of them were very practical, and some of them have been like practical nuances which we also want to touch upon and then share our knowledge. First and foremost, when we speak to many of our clients who are in the journey in this modernization, and when we call that into modernization, so Manoj sir, you were talking about the cost aspect, right? Saying cost is not the only aspect. Scalability and flexibility are other aspects. There is also a very, very important aspect on modernization, meaning modern data management, which is where the AI and MLs of the world are coming into the picture. That's becoming like pretty much a fundamental business case for many of these. Whether these were possible with traditional on-prem systems, possibly yes, but with great difficulty. Varun, you said that on that live inventory, integrate IoT, cameras and all of these things. To do that, you would need some state-of-the-art modern technologies in order to do that. Those are available with the cloud first and the cloud smart technologies, which is where we are enabling the clients to saying, let's prioritize. And when we saying, okay, now you also said, sir, lift and shift the applications to the cloud is also one of the things, right? When you're doing that lift and shift, we sit with the clients and then apply a grid to saying what are those applications which has the maximum use cases and business outcomes. So we start calibrating to that, saying, okay, is this a technical movement? Is this a technical upliftment from on-prem to cloud, or does it have a business sense to make things faster to the business? There is an ROI in doing things faster. And second thing is also trying to see, saying how much of these things can be made from coding to configuration. So today, the low code, no code may be a buzzword today. I do agree. I'm a consultant myself. So when we go and speak to the clients, low code, no code is a fantastic buzzword. But at the same time, we are moving more towards mapping and configurations. Now, we are looking at those cloud smart technologies which can aid mapping and configurations to do things rather than coding. So, When we are doing a lift and shift, we actually study fundamental. First thing that we study and prioritize is to see saying, is this application a lift and shift or does it require a re-architecture? So fundamentally rethinking saying, hey, is there any re-architecture that is required so that we don't do the, for want of a better word, we don't do the same mistakes again onto a cloud platform, or do we make this data world much better, application world much better onto the cloud? So it's a point of rethinking saying whether I want to move everything as it is into the cloud, which is quite technical, but to the business, can I go and tell them saying, I'm not just moving, I'm modernizing. These are the additional capabilities that the business is going to be enabled with. One quick win onto those capabilities are those AI ML stuff. Because in many of the AI stuff, you need these modern infrastructures to do a quick image analysis or to do a quick video detection, and then to go and tell them saying that, hey, these are the art of possibilities in doing that. In a traditional on-prem, we would probably invest a lot and do a huge amount of time for us to do that. But as in the cloud technologies, these are possible through simple configurations and simple code, not a huge lines of code, but it has got that amount of sophistication for us to go and saying, hey, image detection, and to convert that into a business case. To saying, hey, these are the art of possibilities, it's becoming something like a wow factor to the business saying, okay, how do you do it? Oh, by the way, I can do this with these set of technologies. So here are the investments and this is the outcome. So the ROI is slowly being calibrated into business outcomes to saying, here are my business outcomes and these are high priorities. Let's look at these use cases and priorities to move into the cloud. So now we as consultants, we are helping the clients to think about the business outcomes, business priorities, and then sandwich the technical, advantages that come along with this entire cloud migration. So that's the first step towards prioritizing all of these use cases. Second thing is, once you've prioritized, how do you quickly move? Right? And again, I'm not using the word migration alone. In that modernization journey, so you had said about one point in terms of saying like, how do we classify which application that can be on-prem and onto the cloud? On that aspect, there are a number of maturity assessment studies that are being done by us in order to see a step zero, not even step one, step zero, to look at saying, okay, what is the maturity of this particular application in order to move or modernize into a cloud? Are there any business advantages that are coming along with it? Second is, how ready is this data? Is this data readily movable, which means migratable? Else, does these need any scripts? Third is, many of our clients have built big data worlds. And when I say big, it's really enormous over the time. Now, they actually do not know, or their business teams do not know, what are all the data that is available in their data world, which means there is no data catalog. And when we are moving them into a cloud, first thing that we start telling them is, let's look at some of the modern things that are there. Intelligent Data Catalog, IDC, available in all of the modern cloud platforms, including AWS, to tell them saying, here are your data assets. If you have access to these, you can do the art of possibilities in terms of much more of analytics use cases, machine learning use cases, etc., etc. Today, in the absence of a nice library of a data catalog, it's becoming very difficult to adopt the big data worlds. So what happens is, there's a huge investment, very less ROI, because people have not really adopted these data worlds and then reap the benefit. One answer, I'm not saying the only answer, one answer is cloud modernization for them to saying, let's look at intelligent data catalogs in terms of doing some of these things. The second aspect comes the engineering work, saying like, okay, I'm on-prem data lake or a data world, etc. If I have to get into this, okay, I'm sold on to the modernizing, but this engineering activity is that if that engineering activity is going to be too manual, again, we have a cost issue. That's where we started looking at accelerators. Every project, in fact, I was talking to Varun just before we entered the room. Every project today is being, converted into an accelerated, repeatable, which can be repeated into the other clients. For example, database migration, data migration, schema migration. All of these are accelerators, which are like packages where you have a left hand side onto your traditional technologies, right hand side onto your cloud technologies, you move it. Now, a practical answer is 70 to 80% automation possible. We are able to achieve up to 80% of effort savings and then moving the data, schema, etc. The remaining 20% is like a check, a sort of make a checker to saying whether these have been done right or not. There is nothing that has been 100% automated, but there is intelligence that has been built over here in order to reduce a humongous data engineering activity that can be done faster, which is what is making the AI ML infrastructures to be more faster. Again, Shipra, to your question saying, how do we prioritize? In this prioritization journey, the use case that we choose will have to be engineered in these set of accelerated ones so that the outcome becomes more effective. And business does not have to wait for probably years together to see one use case out of a modern data lake. And it's not only about the engineering activity. Girish was touching upon saying, once you configure it, how do you govern it? That becomes a very big headache today to many of our clients because they are managing terabytes of data. And how do you manage and govern onto the cloud infrastructures? Adding more sources, adding new data sources, or adding external data. So today, the data scientists are very hungry. They want to experiment with more and more newer data sources. The data sources of yesterday becomes sort of extinct in no time. They want newer data sources. So how do we integrate those newer data sources? So there comes the intelligent data management studios which have been built over time. Again, it has been an investment from Cognizant and from AWS in order to saying how do we help clients in order to do these faster and also manage these effectively. Last but not the least, you can also Google it. There is one Cognizant AWS data hyperloop. The hyperloop is the future in terms of transport, right? You can just Google for that Cognizant AWS data hyperloop. Now, the way Cognizant in AWS is actually visualizing the future of data transport is a similar hyperloop where lot of these data ingestion and integration and all of these packages come together, get integrated into one single piece and do it much more faster. So that's the future that we are trying to think through to saying that should we do a piecemeal approach which is not helpful to our clients, but in that entire prioritization journey, how we can bring all of these pieces together so that there is value to the business and not just a technical modernization. Let me pause here. Happy to take any questions.
So before that, Sumit, I want to bring you into the conversation. Long wait, I know for you, but I will, very pertinent question because everyone here wants to know what are the use cases that will get them the maximum returns. Okay, so there are two kind of use cases. One is the low hanging fruits which will get you the quick wins, and then there are of course the strategic ones which is which lead to a strategic shift in the way changing the way things are done. So from AWS perspective, what do you see are some of these key use cases that are seeing the maximum traction in the market, both from the perspective of the low-hanging fruits as well as the strategic ones?
That is a very interesting question, Shipra. And if I would have to speak on this particular question.
And also, let me just add to it. Let me make it even more complex. Since he spoke about AI, ML, are there never before seen use cases for analytics, AI, ML, IoT made possible by cloud? If there are any such that you want to add.
There are two thoughts coming in my mind right now. If I were to talk about this new question, probably the first in the beginning, right? I would have a different approach. Now hearing different perspective from all of you, and these are your real practical examples, right? You're running your organization in a certain way for such a long time. You know your industry more than any one of us, right? As an AWS, right, we get an opportunity to work with millions of customers every month, across, with having hundreds of thousands of partners, right, across the globe. And we see every possible use case, right, across all possible industries, every imaginable use case, right? Well, a DR strategy for Varun looks good on cloud, but probably Rajesh would have a different view to it, right? So this is learning that all of us get, right? But it's more important to think about why to go for cloud, right? What if it is business is expecting from us as CIOs, CISOs, right, or from IT, right? It's just an enabler right, in terms of supporting in operations, right? It is helping us to innovate, to think about business for tomorrow, right? And that's where the different use cases comes up, right? If you think, Rajesh just said, for a, let's say for a startup or for a, a born in the cloud company, let's say cloud is must, right? But how about enterprises? Enterprises, if you think about your journey itself, you think about, okay, 5-7 years back, probably my backup, my archival, my DR strategy could have been built on cloud. But what are organizations doing today on cloud? Are they doing lift and shift purely from a cost point of view? Or they really want to, leverage the power of cloud, leverage the power of, all this breadth of solutions and offerings out there to really innovate at scale, right? What is the core asset that you have in an organization, right? It's the data that what you have. As KK just pointed it out, it has been residing in silos in various places. How can cloud help you to innovate at scale? The cost of experimentation, the cost of failure, the cost of coming back. Ajay sir has his own, scenarios and is learning, and we learn along with you, right? While we work in business with customers, we are learning every day, and we believe there's no compression algorithm to learning and experience, right? But are there mechanisms to come back to improvise, right, on the learnings and correct ourselves? Answer is yes to cloud. So we get all possible opportunities on cloud. We think, from today's perspective, be it in terms of thinking about leveraging the power of data. Right, in terms of keeping the lights on, how much lights do we have to keep on during the pandemic time? If you're running a data center on-prem, right, do we have to maintain the same level of investments during the pandemic time when the business has shrunk? Or we have to just keep the bare minimum lights on to keep our business running? Or to address the supply chain disruption that happened, right? So you have to look at, where do we want to be 5 years from now, 10 years from now, and think from a promoter's lens. I think that's where all those use cases come up. I'll give you a classic example. I can talk about few customers in the Cloakroom session, right? More retail. It's a grocery chain here in India. During pandemic time, they saw there was a lot of sporadic demands, right? And they used the data at that one time to do an demand forecasting. With that, data what they had in hand, they were able to build real-time insights, improve the stock rates, were able to bring down their food wastage, and able to improve their margins. And there are many such customers. Think about Volkswagen as an example, one of the largest car maker in Europe, right? 11 brands building close to 11 million cars per year. What they've done, they've built up an industry cloud, not only to connect the 120 plus factories, operation machines, but to think about beyond building cars, right? They're connecting their partners, they're connecting the aggregators today and leveraging that power, right? One, to improve the supply chain operations. Second is to improve the sustainability ecosystem, right? Bring down the overall cost, and as well as innovate in terms of identifying new business models for them. And there are many, many such examples. You have to think about from use case point of view, how you can leverage the power of data that you have. That's point number one. How can you improve the sustainability aspect of your organization, right? As an IT, right? While organization is doing in terms of building greener cements, right? Improving their, reducing their energy consumption, right? Because all for the sustainable, responsible organization. But can really IT contribute there? Can cloud help you in terms of, reducing your carbon footprint? That's point number two. Point number three, how can you personalize the end user experience? Are you really connected in your current business to the end consumer? Right? From cement point of view, 5 years back, were you really interested beyond a dealer consumer creator? But today you are. It's important for you. And if you have the data, how are you harnessing that data in terms of, improving your recall to that customer or having a repeat sale, right? That's point number three. Point number four is in terms of, improving the overall supply chain in this unprecedented time. So I think we have to just think about from a business lens rather than an IT lens, and then think about possible use cases. Possibilities about experimentation, possibilities about failure, and the cost of those failures and coming back. Are there mechanisms to improve cost? Answer is yes. Very important point we talked about, security, shared responsibility model, right? How are you running a security today? By putting a firewall, can you say to your management that we are fully secured? Answer is no, right? We always say that security is improving the posture, right? We build a defense in depth. There's nothing different on cloud. What happens on cloud? You get a shared responsibility model wherein we are saying, okay, as an infrastructure provider, we are owning up the responsibility of the data center, the infrastructure you are using. But how about the data? You own the responsibility. Now, whether do you have the right controls, whether you have the right mechanisms to provide to put all the security guardrails, answer is yes. When it comes to guidelines or regulations, right, ISO 27001 or other data local referencing laws, does security adhere to the same security guideline standard? Answer is yes. And do you have artifacts to run your security audits tomorrow, ISO or anything like this? Answer is yes. So all those mechanisms already place. Security for a, let's say, public sector bank or for a private sector bank is no different. The security guidelines, guardrails are the same. It's everything available out there. It's all about how you're leveraging those, solutions out there. I'll take a pause with this, right? And in terms of, innovative use cases we talked about,
Right.
that is very important, Shikha. It's all about your thinking, what all you can think about it. And we have got very innovative use cases, right? Think about Amazon, for example, 20 years back, right? Who would have thought, a retail company or a book selling company is starting a platform. And now with this platform being there, and a lot many other platforms coming in place, right? How you will harness the power of platform? Do you have to build everything by scratch by yourself? No. There are many such examples. There's a company called, Boom Supersonic. They're building the fastest aircraft, commercial aircraft in the world, and they are using the power of cloud, right, to build a sustainable aircraft. So they're building those models. They're using that HPC, right, to build a fully carbon neutral, aircraft test environments. That is one environment. There's a company like Siemens, right, who are building their, lithium-ion batteries, right, wherein they want to build these batteries and they connect these batteries back to the cloud and leverage their, data in terms of improving the overall user experience. Yeah, right. I talked about Volkswagen. Volvo is doing something in this space, probably, which is I can talk more about it. There are companies like Sierra, there are companies like Apollo in India, who are transforming big time in cloud, right? Wherein they're bringing all their data at one place. Not only they're improving their, operations in the factories, but they're improving the supply chain. They're improving how they're connecting with their dealers. They're connecting with the end consumers today, right? Tire company is not only interested in selling the tire, let's say to a Maruti or to a Ashok Leyland or to a Volvo Asia, they're interested in connecting to the end consumer, right? There are many such use cases. I won't touch upon the DNB or the startup customers here, but it's all about how much innovative can you be in terms of thinking through use cases.
So before we wrap up this conversation, I want to pick up the last point, Sumit, that you spoke about some innovative use cases in around analytics, AI, ML, IoT. So I want to understand from the practitioners here, how are you looking at cloud, or how are you looking at leveraging cloud or the power of cloud to enable some innovative and advanced use cases around AI, ML, IoT? So anyone would like to share something that you've already done or planning to do?
Yeah, so we do use a lot of AI technologies to analyze. Data security becomes the prime concern in that case. We use technologies in three ways. One is the AI/ML solution that we create, and in defense, aerospace, all the places we use AI/ML technologies. Because nowadays it is the precision time. If you are firing a shell, it should not fall right somewhere else. So that's why we use precision time instead of MTP also, right? So so lot of analysis goes on, right? When there is a mine, then it should be detected properly. It should not be a false alarm, right? So in order to analyze, there are a lot of softwares. So that analysis takes a lot of time and generate huge data. Yeah. So in analysis, we generate TBs of data, right? Using on-cloud technologies, are we able to secure that data? Because that analysis data we can't expose to the world, right? Even if you say that it is on public, we can't put it on the public cloud. So I have discussed with AWS representative earlier. So yet to explore on that one, how we can take up the existing data, analyze it out to the cloud, and then bring back.
Yeah.
Okay, that is also important.
Yes.
We can't put it there.
Right.
And we cannot expose that data also. So whenever, let's say, engine is initiated, it takes the data from the local hard disk or the hard disk that we have given to AWS, and then put back the data analysis, and then bring back. So analysis, Then simulation is another one. We do a lot of simulations before going actually into the trials and fields. So simulation is carried out. Again, there is a lot of data. So what we are doing, we are using the local compute. But you know that local compute, getting local compute with high number of CPUs, GBs, RAM, right? It takes a lot of time to procure. Then scalability is not there. And it takes lot of time to simulate. Sometimes we take even 30 days. Simulation we started, it ends by 30th day because of the compute limitation. So, and it is a surge, which is a moment required, not all the time.
Correct.
So let's say in part of the year, we may end up using that for few hours and few months. Right? But we cannot engage that for whole lot of years. In our case, as the cost of high compute is very high, in multi-crores, so we have to optimize that one. And if AWS can help us in optimizing that inventory and providing us that time slot, okay, then it will be better. And more or less, data security is much important.
So you already have a business challenge.
I cannot have a
No, but this is very interesting because this is an ideal use case for cloud, but like you said, governance and of course security being highly confidential information. That how do you juxtapose the two? Any other sir you would like to how you're leveraging cloud or
this is a very critical. Cloud basically has been a beneficial thing for us since all our vehicles are now fitted with telematic devices.
Right.
There's a live data every couple of seconds which is coming in.
Okay.
Getting streamed in onto the cloud, and we are running live analytics on this thing in terms of vehicle diagnostics.
Okay.
Identifying telemetry of the vehicle, where the vehicle is, in terms of identifying diagnostics of the vehicle, identifying the driver behavior pattern, how he is driving the vehicle.
Yeah.
Okay, all this data is getting analyzed on real-time basis. As well as India is, from a country perspective, you see the challenges, the operators, the drivers which drive these vehicles. There's a huge amount of fuel theft happening. So live monitoring of fuel theft also is something which is being working on that. So there's the potential is huge from a data analytics firm, and that only can be handled by the cloud. I don't think we can do anything on premise. So it's a boon in that particular domain for us. Sure.
any future use cases around AI, ML, IoT that you're planning the others on cloud?
We are using AI ML already, and the purpose of that is to look at the white spot because for rural coverages, we have approximately 4 million outlets. So we have to see what are the possible opportunities we have in those areas. So there are two parts we are looking at. The prescriptive analytics to plan the next action, specifically what coverage we have to do, what distributor retailers we have to add to the system to get additional business. So there it's helpful, and of course it's the cloud platform which is working for us. The database is increasing like anything because it is getting updated regularly, and it's a big data platform. So it not only carries the data which we are generating, it also carries the data which is coming from outside. It's really working. Second piece is the image processing which you talked about. So we are looking at the possibility of how we can identify our brands and merchandising, in the general trade, which is quite a challenging task because that also needs a lot of awareness. So there again, the cloud platform is there. The intelligence is built into the system wherein it can easily recognize that how our presence of product is there on the shelf, and what are the quantities available, where we have to replace it, and if it is really working the way we have planned the planogram which we make. So all that we are currently already using it. And then of course the future is as you know that we are also looking at possibly increasing the coverage. That is going to happen more because we have lot of villages now which are coming under as the developed villages. So we generally target those villages which are getting developed and then increase our penetration there. So it's increasing, and I think the cloud solutions like this are really helpful in to meet these increased demand of data.
So very interesting, how see from a defense perspective, from a auto perspective, from a FMCG perspective, the AI/ML use cases, how they differ. Yes, please.
See, one words of wisdom or the experience that we are seeing from our clients is that all of these use cases are fantastic use cases and very practical. Now, what we are doing when we are meeting with these clients is to calibrate these use cases into capabilities, into small center of excellences within the client. For example, natural language processing as a capability. Now, so natural language processing can be applied for RPA, can be applied for anything, chatbot, etc., call center excellence, etc. So when you're doing that one use case on intelligent call center to go through all the voice records and then give you analytics, we as consultants start looking at it saying like, is this one use case or is this capability can be applied to many other use cases within the organization? So then what we start doing is to construct mini center of excellences within the client organization. So that for image processing, natural language understanding, natural language processing, or for video processing, cognitive, non-cognitive, etc. So that the capability is able to generate more and more use cases. Now that's for the scalability and extendability of all of these things. Because what is applicable for one use case, that capability can definitely be reused for another one. So that's something that we want to share with all our clients, saying like going forward, I think the mini center of excellences, it need not be a big 100-member team, but mini center of excellences so that one capability can be reused and then promoted as a business outcome for another use case. For example, natural language processing, while many of the state of the art technologies claim a lot, still how to decipher Hindi dialect with different Hindi dialects within India and to make sense, still a challenge. Similar to that in many other regional languages. So we need to develop that as a expertise within the organization, create the mini COE so that more use cases can be done on scale.
Right. So you're scaling up the capabilities that you're building.
The capability building is also equally important as we go through all of these modern ones.
Yeah. So as much as I would I would like to continue with this discussion. I know we are running late, and so I want to quickly wrap up with, let's call it a rapid fire, because I don't want it to again take a long time before we move to the cocktails and dinner. So from all the practitioners here, maybe 15 seconds, though I don't have a stopwatch, but just approximately 15 seconds. What is your top priority from a digital investments perspective in the next 1.5 years, 1.5 to 2 years? So we can start with you. So which is one key digital investment priority for you?
In my opinion, it's a digital mindset. That's the priority. Once the mindset is there among the organization and the people, then things will follow.
So investing in the awareness and
awareness,
skilling,
getting the technology near to the user so that they see, how they can live it. Because there is a difference between the base application and the digital tools. So tools, how people would be adopting unless until people understand it, I don't think we would be able to generate the use cases around it.
Your priority?
I would say 3 priorities. One is at each layer of the manufacturing or the business part. So how can we optimize, maybe from a raw material to the finished good? How can we optimize each so that there is an effective working capital management? Second is trying to increase the channels to reach customer. Third, we are thinking about maybe social listening in future, because if a rider is driving and something happens to him, there's a lot of negative feedback in the market. We are looking at this, how can we get the feedback faster?
Great. Girish, I'll have a different question for you. So,
mine is customer experience is the major one, and another one is the IoT based devices like connected drive in the automobile industry. So we are also working on this, connected VR, connected AC, all kind of AC, so that we can capture the data. That's a criteria.
Thank you, Yogesh.
For us, it's automation. We are trying to maximize automation, the factory automation specifically, using of AR, VR technologies in the business. There are big tanks and those AR, VR technologies. And resource optimization is another one. So we talked about the big servers that we have. So resource optimization is another thing that we are looking at, so that we can enable business faster and then optimization and then security. It's like that.
That's the umbrella. I think that goes without saying. Tops the umbrella over all priorities.
So, yes.
Yeah, Basant sir.
For us, we are scaling our Industry 4 plan. So a lot of data which is going to get generated with the solution scaling. And since the data is increasing, because we are talking about so many things, from inside to outside, how we meet the analytical demand, mainly prescriptive analytics. That is what we are focusing upon. So analytics will get generated, and security is without say.
Right. Thank you. Ajay sir, your top priority from digital investment
We're already
perspective.
working on a major process transformation from a digitalized approach, entire ERP landscape transformation, not just mechanics, it's a complete transformation. So that's one which is critical for us in the next 1.5 years. Next, we're talking about a lot of digital enhanced collaboration with next-gen tools. So that's something which is very critical and something we have been using for the last couple of years. We have wanted to make it a platform. The third is on the manufacturing IoT. A lot of analytics case is coming up in manufacturing IoT. That's where we're looking.
Thank you, Rajesh.
One is bringing OT clear to the IT parts. That's one we have to take a look. And second, probably we are looking on democratization of this emerging technology. So as let's say that small scale, and I'm saying okay, next small scale then with everyone. So suppose analytics, it may not be confined to 5-10 people, can be 100 people within the organization who is actually working on the use case. So every use cases we want that it should come up with the whole community, and that's why special focus is there to democratize what we are doing. Obviously, zero code and low code is helping in that. So this is what second focus which we are looking at. Bring OT because then it's more reliance are there, and then democratization of technology.
Thank you so much. So Sumit, KK and Girish, from what I want to hear from you is one key takeaway that you want everyone to go back with. You can have two as well, but I wanted to keep it at.
From my point of view, if you look at it, right, I think it's a common theme, right? One is I heard from Manoj, one, building a culture, building a mindset, that is very important, right? And as a AWS or an Amazon, what peculiar, I won't say we are the unique one in this thing, but what peculiar we are doing is the culture, what we build as an organization. Today we have 50 plus businesses within Amazon. So one thing which we do with our customers is sharing our culture of innovation. By no means we are saying it's the best way to do run business, but we really love to share our secrets of how we have built a mechanism in day one culture with keeping customer at the center of everything what we do. So we can do a culture of innovation session for your organization wherein you can invite your business team, because more of a cultural shift. That's that one thing we would love to offer as an Amazon and AWS along with Cognizant. That's one. Second, security is a common theme I'm hearing, right? And as I said, security on cloud, security on-prem, no different. Well, there has to be a single neck to choke, but there has to be proper guardrails in place. If cloud has all the bells and whistles and tools and mechanisms, the answer is yes. So we would love to do a security workshop for you all, wherein we'll dive deep in terms of what all is possible on cloud. And can you bring the same security portion what we enjoy today on cloud? Answer is yes. The second thing which I would love to offer along with Cognizant is doing a security workshop for all of you. Then probably at an individual level, we can pick up the use cases, right? What we're talking about, and work with all of you.
Thank
Does
you.
it make sense?
Yes, sir, but 0-day vulnerability is the question. And we always see that 0-day vulnerability to Microsoft, AWS, or any other. So the moment the person hears about that one, AWS knows. But business doesn't know what has actually happened. They will always get back to IT. AWS में जो डाल के रखा है, you'll get it. And we lost it, right? So how much our business is impacted, then analysis goes on for time.
Make sure to answer dena chahte. So when you think about security in the cloud, you just think about not about AWS, any cloud provider that build a platform that serves today banks, financial institutes, government, defense, some of the largest enterprises, right? Think about AWS. We built this platform to, started with Amazon, internal consumption. Then we started offering it as a cloud offering, public offering, right? It provides all the best security guardrails, thinking about all these large enterprises in mind. And you get all those tools and mechanisms, right? Zero-day vulnerability, can it be there on cloud? Answer is yes. Does it exist on-prem? Answer is yes.
Yes.
Are there mechanisms to control it on cloud in a much, agile way, in a cost-effective? Answer is yes. Is the cloud provider investing? Just think about it. We bring in much more investments and commitment when it comes to resources, skills, understanding them, because think about the data that is traversing through the cloud, right? Some of the largest attacks that happen, DDoS attacks or any other attacks that are happening in cloud providers like AWS. Are we mitigating it successfully? Answer is yes. शिव ने बात करी थी कि घर पे अपने लॉकर में हमने रख दिया सामान और फिर क्लाउड पे रख दिया. Think about it. We keep money at home, we keep money in a bank, right? So we know there are 3 more layers of security guardrails in a bank than versus getting out there.
So in civilians, that is there, right? But in case of defense, you can see right now also the defense is using different networks, irrespective of the security MPLS or anything SD-WAN or all the technologies that is existing. They are also aware about that, right? Still, they are laying their own fibers, own cables, right?
I think the nuances completely change when it comes to defense.
What you've done, Shipra, and these are very peculiar use cases. You're absolutely right. In US, they actually have a US cloud, which is separate cloud altogether for defense.
Correct. So
then there are solutions.
Similar.
Then there are solutions out here as well, wherein you can host the same level of compute, storage, and get the processing capacity on-prem with AWS outpost.
So we have to actually arrive at a perfect model around that, right? At least in order to safeguard the country's interest. So nobody will question if your money is lost. So there will not be a country news. But if some guns design is lost out, then everybody will look at it.
Extremely sensitive data, right? There are solutions today to get the same, compute power processing on-prem.
Ring fenced.
Ring fenced.
You still have your own private cloud as such.
No, we can have.
You can bring public cloud in your premises.
Absolutely.
So overall optimization is required. Perspective of security, data, compute, everything.
We keep on doing the security workshop, and we would love to host all of you, right? And dive deeper on this topic.
Okay.
See, the theme of this particular workshop and this roundtable discussion was to future-proof your enterprise with digital. Now, I want to leave a message and some thoughts around all of us is to look at how are we going to future-proof that. We are saying that let's not just automate, but we need to add intelligence to that entire automation aspect, which means when we are saying future proof, we have to differentiate ourselves in the market, have competitive differentiation. Varun, you said about helmets, and then how the users are going to give a feedback about the helmets when they're having an accident. Now, that's a very differentiating use case with respect to your competitors as well. So that's going to give you competitive differentiation. But while you are doing that particular use case, there is a lot of intelligence that is available onto the cloud technologies, which needs to be leveraged. So when you're looking at all of this, also wear that intelligence lens and then saying, am I doing this in a much more sophisticated manner, where it's not just automation, but sophistication added to automation. That's what is going to future-proof us. That's my straightforward message.
Thank you, Girish.
Okay. See, I would like to probably not go with a theme, but I would like to see how we traversed these 2 hours. Initially, we had a challenge with legacy. I'm just trying to, from my perspective, I felt that we have a legacy, we have a challenge in not all fit for purpose, we still need on-prem. And same, all of us have a new vision on AI, ML, or new things that we are doing on cloud. So I can correlate to this, like what happened when we started server rooms in our own offices. We had dedicated server rooms, that was our security. Then we said, no, we will give it to some service providers who are only job is to host. We outsourced our entire infrastructure, literally moved the lift and shift and kept it in their data center. And we trusted that. That was a mindset change. Then from there we said, it is too much cost for me to manage entire data center. I will share the data center. You just create a cage. My data center is part of it. Your data center is also part of it. Everybody's data center. That means 10 customers are there and I'm trusting my data is not leaked out. Right? So that is an evolution. From there, we have come now to putting it to cloud.
is cloud has all answers now? I would be fool if I say everything is yes. But do we have the roadmap for that? Definitely yes. So I feel that the perspective, and again going back as we started, what are the drivers, business drivers that makes we to move to the cloud and at what cost? And imperatively, I mean, it is imperative, like what we moved from our own server rooms to AWS cloud or any other cloud, it is going to be that some of those constraints of security, on-prem versus cloud, I think those use cases will have more and more solutions, and we together would like to work more and more to see, because Amazon, when they launched, we had very few offerings. Now we have 200 services to offer. That means we are also, as organizations or partners, we are also investing more to solve those problems. I'm sure there is any problem, if it is looked at the right perspective and right use case, I think it can be solved. And that's what I feel as a takeaway, that there's a digital life ahead, and mostly everybody is, that's what the discussion was concluding. Everybody wants to get more intelligence, more outcome out of what they are doing. I think it's where we will land.
So taking cue from what you said, Girish, about whether we have all the answers for cloud. So we started with some questions. I don't know whether we found the answers to those questions or not. Maybe we ended up with more questions than answers, but it is good that that we, even if we have more questions, because that means that we are thinking on the right path. We are looking at things in a more strategic and structured way, instead of just heading on straight into any cloud investments. So I would encourage all of you to keep asking those questions and finding answers to those. Hopefully, over cocktails and dinner, we have a lot more conversations offline and see if there are any answers. You have Sumit, Girish and KK to hold on to their necks. And see if they can, get them to answer some of the questions. But great, thank you so much. It was a great conversation, and though we had planned it for about 1.5 hours, we, I think, roughly concluded it in 2 hours, and we still haven't touched the tip of the iceberg. So that shows how, we are still a long way to go, but let's keep the conversation going. Thank you so much once again.
Thank you.
Fantastic.